What happens when America's sweetheart meets daytime television's brightest star, and everything goes spectacularly wrong? The tension in Studio 6B was thick enough to cut with a knife as Sandra Bullock settled into the familiar guest chair across from Kelly Clarkson. What started as a routine promotional interview for Sandra's latest project quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. Before we dive into this explosive encounter, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this heated exchange. The Kelly Clarkson Show had been running smoothly for years, with Kelly's warm personality and genuine curiosity making even the most media-shy celebrities feel at home. Sandra Bullock, known for her quick wit and down-to-earth demeanor, seemed like the perfect guest for what was supposed to be a lighthearted conversation about her career and personal life. The production team had prepared the usual talking points, expecting another feel-good segment that would leave audiences smiling. "Sandra, it's so wonderful to have you here," Kelly began, her trademark smile lighting up the studio. "I have to say, you look absolutely radiant. There's something different about you lately, and I think our audience has noticed it too." Sandra shifted slightly in her chair, her smile becoming a fraction more guarded. "Thank you, Kelly. That's very kind of you to say. Oh, come on now," Kelly pressed, leaning forward with the enthusiasm that had made her a beloved talk show host. "There's definitely something. Is it the new movie? A new man in your life, perhaps? Our viewers are dying to know what's got Sandra Bullock glowing like this." The first hint of tension appeared as Sandra's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm here to talk about the film, Kelly. It's a passion project that I've been working on for 3 years, and I think people are really going to connect with the story." Sensing an opportunity for the kind of personal revelation that made for great television, wouldn't let it go. "But Sandra, you know our audience loves you like family. They've been with you through Speed, through Miss Congeniality, through your Oscar win. They feel like they know you, and when someone they love is clearly happy about something, they want to celebrate with you." "I appreciate that," Sandra replied, her voice carrying a subtle edge that the studio audience couldn't quite place. "But some things are meant to be private. Kelly, surely you can understand that better than anyone." The comment landed like a small bomb in the studio. Kelly's smile faltered for just a moment, her eyes flashing with something that looked suspiciously like anger. The reference was clear to anyone who followed entertainment news. Kelly had been very public about her own personal struggles and had built much of her talk show brand on openness and vulnerability. "Of course I understand privacy," Kelly said, her voice still warm but with a new undercurrent of steel. "I just think there's a difference between privacy and being deliberately evasive with people who have supported your career for decades." Sandra's eyebrows rose slightly, and she sat back in her chair. "Evasive. Kelly, I came here to promote a movie. I wasn't aware that my personal life was a requirement for that." "It's not a requirement," Kelly shot back, her media training warring with her genuine frustration. "But it's what makes for authentic connection. It's what makes people care about the art you're trying to share with them." The studio audience began to sense the shift in energy, the comfortable chatter dying down as they picked up on the tension between the two women. Sandra's publicist, sitting just off camera, looked like she wanted to dive under her chair. "Authentic connection," Sandra repeated, her voice taking on a tone that regular viewers of late-night comedy shows would recognize as dangerous territory. "Is that what we're calling invasive questioning now? Because I have to tell you, Kelly, this doesn't feel very authentic to me. It feels like fishing." Kelly's face flushed slightly, her carefully maintained composure beginning to crack. "Fishing? Sandra, I'm trying to have a conversation with you. The kind of conversation that our audience expects when they tune in to see someone they admire." "And what if I don't want to have that conversation?" Sandra asked, her voice rising just enough to carry to the back rows of the studio audience. "What if I want to talk about the incredible cast one worked with, or the director's vision, or the important themes in the story we're telling?" "Then we can talk about those things too," Kelly said, though her tone suggested she wasn't ready to give up on her original line of questioning. "But Sandra, you have to admit that you're being unusually closed off today. Our producers spoke with your team, and they assured us you'd be open to discussing your personal happiness." Sandra's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the mask of Hollywood professionalism slipped completely. "My team assured you of what, exactly? Because I can guarantee you that nobody on my team promised you access to my private life." The studio fell completely silent now, even the camera operators sensing that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Kelly, realizing she might have overplayed her hand, tried to backtrack. "I didn't mean to suggest. We just thought. Given your recent public appearances and the way you've been, glowing, double quotes, there's that word again," Sandra interrupted, her voice cutting through Kelly's, stammering like a blade. "Glowing. What exactly are you trying to get me to say, Kelly? Because if you have something specific you want to ask, maybe you should just ask it, instead of dancing around it like we're in some kind of gossip magazine interview." Kelly's face went from flushed to pale in the span of seconds. She glanced quickly at her producers off stage, seeking guidance, but found only worried faces staring back at her. The interview was veering, completely off script, and everyone in the studio knew it. "I'm not trying to trick you into anything," Kelly said, her voice smaller now but still carrying that stubborn edge. "I'm just trying to understand why you're being so defensive about what should be a celebration." Sandra leaned forward. Her eyes locked on Kelly's with an intensity that made the temperature in the room seem to drop 10 degrees. "Defensive? Kelly, let me ask you something. How would you feel if someone kept pushing you to reveal something you weren't ready to share? How would you feel if someone kept insisting that you owed the public details about your private life?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Kelly found herself trapped between her role as an entertainer and her growing personal frustration with her guests' unwillingness to play along. Kelly's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice again, but when she did, there was a new hardness in it that her regular viewers had never heard before. "You know what, Sandra? I think I would handle it with a little more grace than this. I think I would remember that the people asking the questions are the same people who made my career possible in the first place." The words hit Sandra like a slap across the face, and the change in her expression was immediate and unmistakable. Her eyebrows shot up, and she tilted her head slightly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she'd just heard. "Grace." Sandra's voice was dangerously quiet now, the kind of quiet that anyone who had ever been in a real argument would recognize as the calm before the storm. "Kelly, are you seriously lecturing me about grace right now? Are you actually sitting there telling me that I owe you personal information because you have a talk show?" Kelly, perhaps realizing she had crossed a line but unable to back down now, doubled down instead. "I'm telling you that there's a difference between being private and being rude to someone who's trying to celebrate you. Celebrate me." Sandra let out a laugh that had absolutely no humor in it. "Is that what this is? Because it feels a lot more like an interrogation. It feels like you've decided what story you want to tell about me today. And you're upset that I'm not cooperating with your narrative." The studio audience was completely silent now, some of them looking genuinely uncomfortable as they watched two beloved celebrities tear into each other with increasing venom. The cameras kept rolling, the operators unsure whether they should cut away or keep capturing what was rapidly becoming must-see television for all the wrong reasons. Kelly's producer was making frantic hand gestures from behind the cameras, trying to signal for a commercial break. But Kelly seemed oblivious to everything except the woman sitting across from her who was refusing to play by the unwritten rules of celebrity interviews. "My narrative," Kelly shot back, her voice rising to match Sandra's energy. "Sandra, I don't have a narrative. I have a show where people come to connect with an audience that loves them. That's it. That's the whole concept." "Then why won't you let me talk about the movie?" Sandra demanded, her voice now loud enough that the studio mics were picking up every word with crystal clarity. "Why is every single question about my personal life? Why are you treating me like I'm some reality show contestant who signed up to have her privacy invaded?" Kelly's face was flushed again, and she was leaning forward in her chair with an aggression that was completely at odds with her usual warm demeanor. "Because your personal life is what makes you relatable, Sandra. It's what makes people care about your movies in the first place. You can't just show up, plug your project, and leave without giving people anything real." "Anything real?" Sandra's voice was incredulous now, and she gestured broadly at the studio around them. "Kelly, this whole thing is fake. These lights, these cameras, this conversation, all of it is manufactured for entertainment. Don't talk to me about real when you're sitting there with a full makeup team and a script full of questions designed to get me to reveal things I don't want to reveal." The accusation about the script hit Kelly like a physical blow, and for the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely hurt rather than just frustrated. "I don't have a script, Sandra. I never use scripts. I ask questions because I'm genuinely curious about the people who sit in that chair. I'm sorry if that feels invasive to you, but it's not fake, and it's not manufactured." Sandra stared at her for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted slightly, as if she was seeing Kelly clearly for the first time since the interview began. But instead of softening her approach, it seemed to make her even more frustrated. "Then that makes this even worse," Sandra said, her voice dropping back to that dangerous, quiet tone. "Because if you're genuinely curious about me as a person, then you should be curious enough to respect my boundaries. You should be interested in what I'm willing to share, not angry about what I'm not." Kelly's hands were gripping the arms of her chair now, and her knuckles were white with tension. "Your boundaries. Sandra, you agreed to come on this show. You agreed to an interview. What exactly did you think that meant?" "I thought it meant I would come here, we would have a pleasant conversation about my work, and I would leave," Sandra replied, her voice getting sharper with each word. "I didn't think it meant I would be ambushed by someone who thinks she's entitled to details about my private life, just because she has a television show." And she actually recoiled slightly in her chair. For a moment, the anger left her face completely, replaced by something that looked like genuine shock. "Ambushed." Kelly's voice was small and hurt. "Now, Sandra, I would never, I don't ambush people. That's not who I am." Sandra's expression softened for just a fraction of a second, as if she recognized that she might have gone too far, but then her defenses snapped back up even stronger than before. "Then what do you call this, Kelly? What do you call it when someone keeps pushing and pushing for information they're not entitled to, even after they've been told no multiple times?" Kelly looked around the studio desperately, as if searching for an escape route, or at least some sign of support from her production team. When she looked back at Sandra, there were tears beginning to form in her eyes, though whether they were from hurt or frustration was impossible to tell. "I call it trying to do my job," Kelly said, her voice cracking slightly. "I call it trying to give our audience the kind of authentic moment that they tune in for. I call it caring about the people who sit in that chair enough to want to know who they really are." Sandra leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed tightly across her chest, and shook her head slowly. "No, Kelly. You call it that because it makes you feel better about what you're doing. But what you're really doing is using your platform to pressure people into revealing things they don't want to reveal. You're using the audience's love for me as a weapon against my privacy." The accusation hung in the air between them like a toxic cloud, and Kelly's face went through several different expressions in rapid succession: hurt, anger, confusion, and finally, a kind of cold determination. "You know what, Sandra?" Kelly said, her voice steady now but completely devoid of warmth. "I think you're right. I think we should talk about your movie. Tell me, what's it about?" Sandra blinked, clearly not expecting the sudden shift in topic. And for a moment, she looked almost suspicious, as if waiting for the trap. "It's about a woman who loses everything and has to rebuild her life from scratch," Sandra said carefully, her voice still guarded. Kelly nodded slowly, a strange smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "And how did you prepare for that role, Sandra? Did you draw from any personal experiences?" The question hit Sandra like a punch to the gut, and the color drained from her face completely. She stared at Kelly for what felt like an eternity, her mouth slightly open, as if she couldn't quite process what had just been asked. When she finally found her voice, it was barely above a whisper, but it carried more venom than anything she had said so far. "Are you kidding me right now?" Kelly's strange smile widened slightly, and there was something almost cruel in her eyes now, a look that would have been completely unrecognizable to her regular viewers. "I'm just asking about your process as an actor, Sandra. Isn't that what you wanted to talk about?" Sandra's hands began to shake slightly, and she gripped the arms of her chair so tightly that her knuckles went white. "You know exactly what you're doing, Kelly. You know exactly what you're asking me. I'm asking you about your craft," Kelly replied, her voice sickeningly sweet now. "I'm asking you how you brought such authenticity to a role about losing everything. Surely that's a professional question, isn't it?" The studio was so quiet that you could hear the hum of the air conditioning system, and the audience members were looking back and forth between the two women like spectators at a tennis match. Except this match was quickly turning into a bloodbath. Sandra stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled, but there was a tremor in her voice when she spoke. "I'm done with this." Kelly's mask slipped completely then, and the fake sweetness disappeared, replaced by raw frustration and something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. "Oh, are you? Are you going to walk away because someone finally asked you a question you didn't want to answer?" Sandra turned to face Kelly fully, and the look in her eyes was absolutely withering. "Nope. Kelly, I'm walking away because someone I thought was a professional just revealed herself to be nothing more than a bully with a television show." The word bully seemed to hit Kelly like a physical blow, and she actually flinched backward in her chair. For a moment, the hurt in her eyes was genuine and raw, but it was quickly replaced by anger that was even more intense than before. "A bully." Kelly's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through it. "Sandra, I'm trying to have a real conversation with you. I'm trying to treat you like a human being instead of some untouchable celebrity who's too good to connect." With the people who made her famous, Sandra let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the silent studio. "Connect with people? Kelly, you're not trying to connect with me. You're trying to exploit me. You're trying to get me to break down on camera so you can have your viral moment." Kelly shot up from her chair then, her composure completely shattered. "That's not true, and you know it. I care about every single person who sits in that chair. I care about their stories and their struggles and their triumphs because that's what makes us human. Then why won't you respect my choice not to share?" Sandra shot back, her voice rising to match Kelly's volume. "Why is my pain entertainment to you? Why is my privacy somehow less important than your audience's curiosity?" Kelly's face was streaked with tears now, but her voice was still strong and defiant. "Because you're Sandra Bullock. Because millions of people look up to you and find strength in your story. Because when you hide parts of yourself, you're robbing them of that connection." Sandra stared at her for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. "Kelly, I don't owe millions of strangers my trauma. I don't owe them my tears or my heartbreak or my healing process, and I certainly don't owe you the right to drag it out of me on national television." The words hung in the air like a final verdict, and Kelly seemed to deflate slightly, as if some of the fight had gone out of her. But when she spoke again, there was still a stubborn edge to her voice. "Maybe you don't owe it to them, but don't you think you owe it to yourself? Don't you think hiding from your truth is just another way of letting your pain control you?" Sandra's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: shock, fury, and finally, a kind of cold disgust that made everyone in the studio uncomfortable. "You have absolutely no right to psychoanalyze me on television," Sandra said, her voice so quiet that the microphones had to strain to pick it up. "You have no right to tell me how to process my experiences or how to heal from my pain. And you certainly have no right to use pop psychology to justify your invasive questioning." Kelly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving streaks of mascara on her cheeks, but she wasn't backing down. "I'm not psychoanalyzing you, Sandra. I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, you're so afraid of being vulnerable that you've forgotten how to be real." The accusation seemed to break something in Sandra, and she actually took a step backward as if she'd been slapped. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking with barely controlled rage. "How dare you? How dare you sit there and question my authenticity because I won't perform my pain for your entertainment? How dare you suggest that my boundaries are somehow a character flaw?" Kelly's own anger flared again, and she moved closer to Sandra, the space between them crackling with tension. "I'm not asking you to perform anything, Sandra. I'm asking you to be honest. I'm asking you to trust me enough to be real for 5 minutes." Sandra laughed again, but this time it was a sound of pure disbelief. "Trust you? Kelly, you've spent the last 20 minutes trying to manipulate me into revealing things I don't want to reveal. You've used guilt, shame, and amateur therapy to try to break down my defenses. Why on earth would I trust you?" The studio audience was completely silent now, many of them looking genuinely distressed by what they were witnessing. This had gone far beyond entertainment into something that felt deeply personal and painful for both women. Kelly's voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke again, but it was filled with desperation. "Because I understand what it's like to lose everything, Sandra. Because I know what it feels like to have your life fall apart in public. Because I thought maybe, if you talked about it, it might help other people who are going through the same thing." For just a moment, Sandra's expression softened, and it looked like she might actually respond to Kelly's vulnerability. But then her defenses snapped back into place, stronger than ever. "That's not your decision to make, Kelly. It's not your choice whether my pain becomes a teaching moment for other people. And it's certainly not your right to try to force it out of me." Sandra turned away from Kelly then, her movement sharp and decisive, and began walking toward the edge of the stage. Kelly called after her, her voice breaking with emotion. "Sandra, please don't do this. Please don't walk away. We can figure this out." Sandra paused at the edge of the stage and turned back to look at Kelly one last time. Her face was composed again, but her eyes were blazing with an anger that seemed to burn right through the television screen. "Kelly, you want authenticity. Here's some authenticity for you. This conversation has been one of the most disrespectful and unprofessional experiences of my entire career. You took something that was supposed to be a simple promotional interview and turned it into an attack on my character and my choices. You used your platform and your audience's affection for me as weapons against my privacy. And then, when I defended myself, you had the audacity to suggest that my boundaries were somehow a sign that I'm not being real." Kelly's face crumpled completely then, and she sank back into her chair as if her legs could no longer support her. "Sandra, I never meant for it to go this way. I swear to you, I never meant to hurt you." Sandra's expression didn't change, and her voice remained steady and cold. "Intentions don't matter when the impact is this destructive. Kelly, what matters is that you chose to keep pushing when I asked you to stop. What matters is that you chose your show's entertainment value over my comfort and dignity as a human being." With that, Sandra Bullock turned and walked off the stage, leaving Kelly Clarkson alone in front of a studio full of shocked and silent audience members. The cameras kept rolling for several more seconds, capturing Kelly's tear-streaked face and the empty chair where Sandra had been sitting just moments before. What do you think really caused this explosive confrontation between two of Hollywood's most beloved stars? Was Kelly justified in pushing for more personal details, or did she cross a line that should never be crossed in daytime television? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling.